Baruch
Atah
Atah
Adonai
Adonai
Dayan
Dayan
Ha'emet,
Ha'emet.
which means blessed be the name of the Lord, the righteous judge of truth. We're accepting God's decree. What it is that we do is standing up to show our strength. So just take it from the bottom up.
And just rip straight up.
No, this way. I'll do this way.
Okay. I'll just rip the thing. Okay, gotcha.
That's fine.
All right.
If you want to be seated with your family, good. We're going to begin our service. Just to remind you, the rules of Mount Olive Cemetery is that we all keep our masks on, except for those speaking, and that you keep social distance, please. If you're not immediate family members or live together, they require that for the safety of their personnel here. Mother's nickname was Mitzi.
Mitzi.
Death has taken our beloved Ilene Schneider. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there's lamentation. In their tears there's loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For amidst these love which united us in life and which death cannot sever, for her companionship that we shared along life's path, which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness, and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks. Those who wish may join me in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we will remember Mitzi. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, in the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, in the beginning of the year when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember Mitzi. So long as she lives, as long as we live, she too shall be a part of us. For we always will remember her. We're here today to recall the life of Ilene Schneider. We recall her being a mother, a wife, a grandmother, which was very important to her, and the sister. She was born in Detroit and then somehow got back here to Cleveland. We're still not sure how that came about. And she met a gentleman, Paul. They fell in love and they got married. Unfortunately, the marriage only was for 24 years. Unfortunately, Paul passed away. But Missy was tough. She had service in her life. She had good times in her life. No matter what was thrown at her, she rose to the occasion. She worked as an administrator when they moved back to Cleveland at the Shaker Heights Housing Department. Her and Paul enjoyed each other for the short time they were married. They were both bowlers. They enjoyed bowling together. And Irene enjoyed Mahjong. She was the queen of Mahjong. Twice a week, she played with the same group of women, developed a great friendship with them. In fact, one of the items we placed in her casket along with her today was a set of Mahjong rules. We just hope they don't change them. But she'll know if they do, believe me. As I was speaking to one of the sons, I asked him what mother did. What did she like to do besides bowl and play Mahjong and work for Shaker Heights? And what I got from him was she enjoyed being a wife and a mother, and especially a grandmother. They were special. Louis, Carolyn, Joe, and Katie. There's a practice in Judaism, and I think it reflects with Ilene, that when someone dies, who's considered a mourner? And it's spouse, children, siblings, God forbid, parents, that have certain rituals, like the one we did earlier at the beginning of the service, the cutting of the garment, the ribbon. Grandchildren don't do that. There's a reason for that. You're supposed to mourn. You're supposed to remember. But once that first grandchild comes, the kids don't mean anything. The grandchild becomes the gift. And that's the way I heard she taught you and treated you, as a gift. And that's what you have to continue to enjoy her memory of what she raised you to, that special level. And it's not a monetary gift, but it's a gift that hopefully that she taught you that you're going to pass on someday to your children and to your own grandchildren. A gift of love, of responsibility. The one thing I did learn that she was not the greatest cook, but there was one dish, her brisket, that everyone seemed to enjoy. Family trips they took earlier in life with her and Paul, but it was mostly all to relatives' homes. Wisconsin, Detroit. Family was important to her. That was what she wanted to instill in you. She was a really good person. She was well liked. And even in her late days, she kept up on the current day's events. She read the paper from the front to the back. She knew everything about the political scene, what was going on in this country and that country. She was an educated woman. She liked to know what was going on. She liked to discuss the current events. I would have liked to know what she thought of today, the current events of what's going on in this political environment. I'm sure she might have told some of you before she died. She had a good marriage, as I mentioned, but when Paul died, it did set her back a little. That was devastating to her. But again, as Jeff said, she was a trooper. She rose to the occasion to stay as a matriarch of the family. She was close to her sister Audrey. She was close to her mother. She also took pride in Jeff and Keith and Lori and Robin. They were her family, no matter what. They were her family. And she particularly enjoyed Jeff's and Keith's adventure in their comedy club in Pittsburgh. Now, I don't know whether it was clean comedy or under the water comedy, as we would say, but she enjoyed it. She enjoyed listening to their tales. She enjoyed picking up on some of the jokes. But most of all, she enjoyed that these two were happy and they were doing it together. That was important to her. That was her family. I'm now going to call upon Jeff to say some remarks.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. As Bart said, my mother was a trooper. She was tough. And I think partially my father and her came out of the Depression era. And it was an era where complaining was not something you did. And you pretty much got on with life. My father was a stickler with that kind of thing, especially with summer jobs, which I hated, but my mother was cut from the same cloth. And with my mother, there were no surprises. You know, what you saw is what you got. She was not duplicitous in any way. She was not shifty in any way. You could take, as what she said to the grave, literally. She was like that. And I would say if you want to describe her, it would be as a good person and a good mother, and she was almost like a textbook mother. Seriously, I don't mean that in a bad way, but she behaved like you would expect a mother to behave, and for that we are grateful. She had no drama outside of my father dying. That was the crusher. That was the big moment in her life where she, survived it, but I wish she could have survived it in a more positive way by maybe meeting somebody. It would have been very helpful, but we all can't predict our own futures. She was a lifelong Democrat. That was something we knew from the beginning, and was always looking out for the little guy, And her famous phrase, which you couldn't argue with, was, "What are you going to do?" So I never could argue out of that. I remember, because she lived so long, a sobering moment. We went to the movies, and this is probably 3 years ago or so, and it's really sobering when you go to the ticket booth and ask for 2 seniors, please. That's the moment where you go. Things are moving ahead. Anyway, she was an inveterate mahjong player, played with the same ladies for at least 50 years, played for 60 years. LeBron James was in 8 NBA finals. My mother was in 20 mahjong finals in a row. She was a champ. I want to relate a couple of things before I pass it back to Bart, but I want to go back to when the current president was nominated, and it was on Mother's Day in 2016. And I remember I called my mother and I said, how's Trix? And she says to me, "I can't believe that Momser got the nomination. I'm so depressed. What's this country coming to?" And I said to her, your guess is as good as mine. And after a long moment, I said to her, I'll tell you what, Mother's Day is coming up. If it'll make you feel any better, I'll drive in and smother you with a pillow. After another long moment, she says to me, you'd do that for your mother? Crazy. She hated his guts. I mean, it was terrible. Even a week ago. We'll see. We'll see. Well, let's hope for the best. And then as she was progressing after her stroke, she was in Grand Point. And I remember having this conversation with her. Mom, did you ever think in a million years you'd have a stroke and then have a conversation with a son who just went through his own mishegas? No, I didn't, she replied. The specter is sitting on both our shoulders. And she says to me, a one-trick pony if there ever was one. She was still on her game, I thought. You have to admit, Mom, as tricks go, it's still one of the best. It never fails to turn heads, that's for sure, she said. The woman sure had guts. I tried to keep the conversation light. The dentist matched the color of the bridges to what is left of my real teeth. Early autumn. I guess I'd better get used to eating kasha varnishkas for the next 20 years. Now, what can you say about a woman, despite all things to the contrary? Her right side was paralyzed, her speech was slurred, she had a feeding tube in her stomach, who can still somehow find a way to be in the moment and laugh like there is no tomorrow. She was tough. So I just want to say to everybody here, I appreciate you coming out. And the main issue is, and the main thing is, I'm in the on deck circle now. I hate to be so blithe about it, but all the young kids, like Katie, she's in the hole. I'm in the on deck circle. They say in baseball, you can't take life for granted. You never know. You never know. And you got to grab for the gusto. And I wrote a little poem. It's not very long. I'm gonna read it now. It's called An Enemy of the Innocent. And it goes like this. Make hay. Make hay. The days of youth pass with the calm of a barely perceptible breeze will in the end bare their teeth as a remorseless raging gale. So you gotta live, and you gotta live as big as you can, because you never know. And it's my mother's testament. She never gave up. It was 2 years in the nursing home, and we could never figure out what she saw out of life. But until you walk in somebody's shoes, you never know. And we're grateful to have her as a mother, and I want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank you.
Well, we now understand why she enjoyed them being in the comedy club business for 30 years. And if you're in the on-deck circle, Jeff, I've been relegated to the bleachers. But after I talked to Jeff, and he told me about his mother and everything she went through, I found this one reading, which I think is very apropos for her. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing, from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change that sweep away the generation, your love remains to comfort us and give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while and seems to cease. Whence the melody and whither does it go? In darkness as in light we turn to you, the source of all life and the answer to all our mysteries. You gave us loved ones and you make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us for fret on a lonely way. But you are the living fountain in which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort and the sorrow laden for constellation. O God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers fade. They weave a timeless pattern in the world that is our dwelling place for your love and glory. Each of us here today have our own memories and our own prayers for Ilene. So let's take a moment of silence and let us all recall those thoughts that are so precious to us. Ask those who are able to rise now for the concluding memorial prayers. The first one I'm going to recite, both in Hebrew and English, is El Mole Rachamim. This is a prayer that, in Jewish belief, when we are buried, that our souls return to God. There's no hell or purgatory in Judaism. All souls return to God. That's for Keith, Jess, and my sake. And what we're doing at this prayer is asking God to accept her soul quickly. El Mole Rachamim Shochem Bar Momim. Amsei Menucha Tacha Kamfe Hashkina Im Kadoshim Udavrim Kazar Harakia Misrim Es Nishmas Ilene Schneider. Shalach le'olamo bi'al harachamim yasdirehu b'sefer kanafol le'olamim v'yitzor b'sor ha'chayim es nishmato alonoi hu nachalato v'yanuach shalom al mishkava v'damar amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering praise to Ilene Mitzi Rhoda Schneider. Grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence, and let her enter eternity, O God of mercy. Let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting light. God is her inheritance, and may she rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. The dust returns to the earth as it was, the spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the Spirit which we now lay within the earth. The Spirit itself cannot die. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our departed Mitzi. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it, still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. O God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand. That the pain which loss inflicts is a measure of a love stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we be like children who know that the parent is near and who cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to us to your keeping. Lake Ishala, Illinois, go your way, for God has called you. Lake Illinois, Mepa, go your way, may God be with you. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you, and grant you that everlasting peace. At this time, I'm going to call first upon the immediate family. Those who wish to participate in placing some earth upon the grave may do so. After the family, any of your friends may. It's a symbolic act. We don't actually fill the grave up, but we have an obligation, symbolic obligation, to show that we helped in her burial. So I invite the family first, and then friends who may.
That's so true.
I
Jeff and Keith. We're going to recite together the final prayer from Mourner's Cottage. The final prayer we say is the Mourner's Cottage. It's a prayer that doesn't talk about death, but talks about life, the most important thing in Judaism. And binding ourselves together as one generation to another in the glory of God. And together we say, Yiskadal, Yiskadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'Alma, Divrach, Ibrusei, B'Amlik, Machusei, B'Chayachol, B'Yomechol, B'Chayet, B'Chol Beis Yisrael, B'Agalah, B'Zman Kariv, B'Imru, Amen. Yahei Shmei Rabbah, Mevarach, Le'olam, U'mei Amaya. Yisbarach, V'Yishtabach, V'Yisbar, V'Yisramam, V'Yisnaseh. V'Yisadar, V'Yisalev, V'Yisalal, Shmei Dekudashah, Barichu. V'Ela Mimkal, Berchasa, V'Shirasa. Tush B'Chasa, V'Nechamasa. Damiram, B'Yama, V'Imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah, Min Shemaya. V'Chaim Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mramah. Uya Aseh Shalom. Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Imru, Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. And as our coming here was to find peace, so too may our going be in peace. Let us say, Amen. On behalf of the family, I wish to thank the friends for coming here today and sharing this time. I think Mom had this plan. Beautiful day.
Yeah, she did.
She did. Take care, people.
Thank you.
Thank you, baby.